possible picks for the Lions, and then we'll get to our pick six and bet. But yeah, so obviously ranking some of these guys, I think Sewell and Jamar Chase are probably our favorite two, right?
Yes.
Okay.
By far. So, I mean, I think – I don't know. I had Micah Parsons probably in my top two for a minute. But I don't know. The off-field issues just, I just don't know if I can – I don't think he's just going to plummet down my board necessarily, but I don't know what – I mean, kind of like Logan said, like you don't really know what he's telling teams or what teams are figuring out. Because these teams, like, they have, like, investigative, like, private and detectives that are finding
like
everything about these people's lives. Like, you know what I mean? So kind of like,
and they have the phone number of someone in the Penn State locker room.
Right.
So do I.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, and it's weird.
I agree. So I still actually have Micah Parsons as number 3 on my draft board, but that's only because those behavioral issues. And I mean, he did the exact same things Etur Gross-Matos did, and Matos didn't have a single issue that come up last year.
Sure.
So I think, and again, some of those issues they're messed up and they're gross, but like those will get filtered right out in an NFL locker room. You'll get your tail beat in real quick if you try to pull any of that crap.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what teams like worry about. I don't think they're sitting there like he's going to do this in an NFL locker room. Like, no, I don't think that's what it is. It's just like, do we really want to bring a person who
clearly doesn't think before he makes choices?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that he'd make the same decisions, but like a different decision in a different situation. Is he going to be able to, they're looking 5 years down the road if he's presented with a different kind of decision in a certain moment, like what is he going to do? So
has he cut out certain people in his life essentially?
Right. And then
if he acts out in one way, he's probably going to act out in others.
That's what their worry is. I don't think it's necessarily like he's going to act like this in an NFL locker room. Like, no, he won't. But I think it's more of is he just a crappy dude overall? You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's not somebody you want to bring in the locker room. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Jamar Chase, I think like he reminds me a lot of Roddy White.
Yeah.
Back in like 2005 NFL draft. So I know that goes back quite a bit, but Roddy White was a solid receiver in the NFL, used his size, had great downfield speed, and worked out for Michael Vick for a long time with the Atlanta Falcons.
He was very good for a while.
So I think that's kind of where I get those kind of vibes of Jamar Chase. Penei Sewell, I get like Laramie Tunsil vibes, just without the marijuana masks,
So Sewell has an opportunity. Sewell has a chance, I think, from a pure just he's extremely flexible across the line, like, and he's so athletic that I get the vibes of, ceiling wise, he could be one of the better offensive linemen in the NFL. I think the reason that some people look at Slater as a safer pick sometimes is, he could maybe not be from a floor standpoint. Maybe the athleticism doesn't translate. Maybe it just doesn't, maybe it doesn't make sense at an NFL level while Slater, I feel like, is like a safe pick.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're going to get out of him. The ceiling's maybe not quite as high, but the floor is definitely not quite as low. So,
right.
But yeah, Sewell's got an opportunity to be as good as it gets if he gets in the right team.
Yeah, and I like Sewell. I think he's definitely the best tackle prospect just for his upside. And in this draft, I don't know. Picking a tackle 3 years away from being competitive is kind of weird to me. Yeah, just because I don't know. He didn't play last year, and I don't know. It's just a weird pick to say, like, okay, you're going to protect our future quarterback. And then if he can't, then you have to – once you get your quarterback, then you have to draft another offensive tackle. So it's a difficult thing. It's a weird thing. I understand the Rashawn Slater, and I've seen some mocks with him at 7, but those have to be mocks where trades aren't available. Because if you're going to pick Rashawn Slater at 7, you need to trade back. Like, even if you get a low return, even if you get, like, next year's second on top of the other first-round pick, like, you need something. Like, you can't pick him at 7. You just can't, in my mind. Like, I just don't see how you do that. But I've seen him mocked there before. I just think Yeah, there's like basically two guys I could see them picking, really three. I could see them picking where I think they should trade back for is Slater, Devonta Smith. If they really like him, I don't see why they would pick him at 7. And then honestly, Micah Parsons. I think they could trade back to like even 15 with the Patriots who might want a quarterback, or especially with the Broncos at 9 and get Parsons. Like I don't see any reason why you couldn't get him.
Especially if they hear that other teams are concerned about field stuff, and if the Lions feel good about it, right. And they might feel all right, like we can probably get him later, and then it just makes more sense.
So Slater's struggle. You're sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying. So Slater, like people are like high on Slater based on like his performance against last year's number 2 overall pick, Chase Young. He dominated Chase Young, which it's a pretty good indicator for relatively. I mean, his potential has become a perennial Pro Bowl All-Pro candidate, like quite good. But he actually did not have great measurables in any pro day trainings or anything like that. I think he benefits best in like an outside zone heavy rushing scheme because of he does have great lateral mobility. But I think passing wise, I think he also is better than Sewell. Sewell is, I think, definitely his strength is the run game, like a downfield run game. Yeah. And then, Slater, obviously great lateral mobility, but I think West Coast passing, I think because of his quickness, I think it can work really well in a West Coast offense if you get a West Coast quarterback, which would be someone similar to like both Trey Lance and Justin Fields.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's weird. Like we don't really talk about it as much in the draft, especially in the top 10-ish to 15. Like, scheme fits, they matter. I don't think teams always draft based off scheme though. In those,
your top 10, you want the best players.
Yeah, exactly.
They can do anything. They can do anything.
But where you see, I think a lot of times where you see busts or where you see problems occur is because guys don't fit a scheme and they can't fit right into there. And that can happen for sure. You talk about it more with on the quarterback level, but it does matter for offensive tackle too.
Yeah, so obviously Jaylen Waddle is another guy that we considered, and many people are comping him to Tyreek Hill. Obviously, it's super fast. People like know that he's a dynamic wideout that spends a lot of time on the outside in the slot. Basically, a chess piece also in the backfield, and he takes care of business in the return game. So he does possess a pretty unique skill set. But he's smaller again, just like his co wide receiver in Alabama, like Devonta Smith, they're just smaller guys, and I don't know if that creates issues for durability long term in the NFL. Just also, Waddle has had injury history, something that Devonta Smith can actually say he has not had, despite being tiny. Waddle does have injury concerns, and so I think that's got to be another thing that you've got to consider if you're going to take that shot on him in the top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like. I mean, obviously you can't go back, but Waddle getting hurt really kind of put just a question mark on what he's able to do, because I remember when he was there with Judy and Ruggs, and people thought he was the best prospect out of the three. Mm-hmm. And obviously Judy and Ruggs had their ups and downs this past year. Judy dropped like 30 passes in one game, but also had saved their life in some games. So like if Jaylen Waddle truly is that player, like if he is the best prospect, like you can add weight to him. Like you can go make him work out with DK Metcalf.
Right.
Go add some pounds on him. You can do that. Trainers, nutritionists, and strength coaches in the NFL know how to add pounds on players. But it's still, at least day one and until he gets to that point, it's concerning because some of those corners will just push him around. And in the NFC North, he's got some tough corners and some tough defensive backs to go up against. He's got Jair Alexander. He's got the secondary of the Bears. It's a tough going over there. So he needs to add weight and be able to kind of take a push and take a press. That's why I'm really out on Smith, because he's so small. Mm-hmm. He is, I think he's we looked it up. He's the third out of the top 50 wide receiver prospects. He's the third lightest, and the other two are both 5'9".
Yeah.
He's just so small, so he's got to add a ton of weight. Like, I understand that the way that they officiate games is kind of wide receiver, like compassionate to wide receivers, but he's going to get shoved to the ground. Like, there's just guys who are going to push him around and within the confines of the rules, and on those ones where they like just don't get caught and they don't get the holding call or they don't get the pass interference, like they will put him off course. So I think Jaylen Waddle has a huge ceiling for me. Like, I think he has such a high ceiling, but Jamar Chase, we obviously know, is the safer and probably has just as high of a ceiling pick. But yeah, I could see Jaylen. I really wouldn't be upset at Jaylen Waddle at 7, but I wouldn't justify Smith at 7. You'd have to trade back to take him first round.
So there's not many wide receivers that get to this level out of college that are super pretty much skin and bones and then perform at like an excellent level, other than like the first guy that comes to my mind recently in the last at least 20 years, Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
Dude was skin and bones, but he was one of the best receivers. Obviously, you have Peyton Manning throwing to you for a majority of your career. That does you a huge service. But I think Smith would actually be a decent wide receiver for a team that may be more playoff ready than the Lions. I think there's enough holes still in Smith's game, and that's why I'm kind of on the same board as you, Isaiah, where he's pretty much he's kind of off my board. Like, it would be a lose. Kind of, even Logan said that in the interview. Like, it's a lose, I think, if they draft him.
If they draft him at 7, if they somehow got down to like 15 and he's like the best available and they drafted him, I wouldn't be that mad there, but I would not draft him in the top 12. If the Lions end up in the top 12, if they stay at 7 or they trade back in the top 12.
I've seen a mock draft where they do trade with the Patriots to 15 and they do draft Devonta Smith at 15. It's hard to be mad about it.
Makes a little bit of sense. Yeah, I think that one makes a little bit more sense, but I don't. And depending on what the trade was, then it's like, all right, you got a solid wide receiver, plus you got, whatever, you got more draft capital more than likely. So I think it makes sense there, but any other spot, I don't like it at all.
Yeah. So other quick comps that I have here, Micah Parsons, I kind of think is close to Miles Jack.
Yeah.
Trey Lance.
I love Miles Jack.
Yeah, I do too, actually. Yeah, and player comps for Trey Lance would be like a smaller Josh Allen, and I think Logan said that too, or Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Justin Fields' comp is a faster Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think, I pretty much covered all those guys except obviously here Kyle Pitts, who I think is kind of like Darren Waller. I think there's not many people that are freakish like him that could play wide receiver. But, I mean, Waller was literally drafted as a wide receiver, put on about 25 pounds, moved over to tight end. And I think that's why you can maybe say Darren Waller is the closest, but I can't really think of anybody else.
Waller was pretty elite last year. But before that, I wouldn't have put him at that elite tier. I don't know. I kind of agree with Logan in the fact that you don't really see what Pitts put up as far as combine and pro day, stuff like that. Like, you don't see those measurables. So it's so intriguing to sit there and you're like, man, what could you do with this guy? What could the Lions do? Would that work? In that type of offense. So that's where I think a lot of his positivity towards Pitts comes from, and like fans' positivity towards Pitts comes from. But I just don't think it makes sense there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's just even not there at all, and then the Lions don't have to worry about it. But I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for him to be in that spot for the Lions to take him. So
you really got to have the right offensive mind to use Kyle Pitts well, and the Lions are going to be really figuring out themselves and what they want to do, what Jared Goff limits them to, and I just think that Kyle Pitts would have to be forced to find his way in the offense.
Yeah.
They would have to just throw him out there, probably in times when he shouldn't be thrown out there. Like that, and I think that's the thing that bothers me the most about the fan base around Kyle Pitts is yes, he's an incredible talent, but you can't just throw people out there and they produce.
Yeah, this isn't Madden.
Like you can't just say, "Oh, well, it's third down, throw Kyle Pitts out there, he'll catch the ball." And it's like, no, there's so much that goes into that. Like you can't just say, "Oh, he's so good, just throw him out there." Like you could, if Tyreek Hill was on the Jets, he would suck. Like I'm just like stuff like that. Like yes, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league, but like you would have so many other things that go into it, especially for a pass catcher. You have offensive lineman, run game, quarterback, all those things go into it.
Yeah.
Who else he's lined up next to so he doesn't have to be double teamed. So, yeah, like I think Kyle Pitts is an incredible talent. I think he is more than just your typical tight end like TJ Hawkinson. But I can't justify 2 first-round tight ends in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just don't know how they use him to get the most out of his talent and us to all say, look at Kyle Pitts, he's so incredible. Like I don't know if they do that.
I don't think it makes any sense, and the way the game's being played right now, kind of like Logan said, you'd almost have to recreate an offense for him, and I'm not sure the Lions are in position where they need to do.
Yeah, they've got too many other issues to worry about right now, getting back on track.
Way too many other problems. So
right, which is why like the Falcons or the Dolphins would be better for him because they have somewhat of an identity and they can plug him in wherever they need him.
Yeah.
Like they have their quarterback set, they have other offensive weapons set. Like in that Falcons offense, like with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, taking eyes from the defensive backfield, Kyle Pitts could go off. Like he could look awesome, and maybe Lions fans would be like, "Oh, we should have had him." But like
not how it works.
Yeah, it's because he has arguably the best wide receiver in the whole entire league next to him, and another dynamic player, and one of the savviest veteran quarterbacks in the league. Like, your rookie tight end's going to be really good in that situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.